when you're doing the 3 peaks, you know, look at 3 challenges. 1 is the challenge of you doing it. 2 is the challenge of, if you like, raising the most amount of money for your team or as an individual. And 3, the challenge is to, if you like, try to understand and to feel what it's like to have nowhere else in your life to turn to than a charity, than an organisation that has to raise money in order for them to provide a service which isn't available about. And that's the bottom line. For us, there was no other options. I'm Dave Hurst, and I suppose really as I used to, well, I still am what they call the Blind Adventurer, which is a title I gained in about 1979 when I started doing some crazy things like first blind person to walk the Pennine Way, the first blind person to climb Mont Blanc, and climbed Mount Kinabalu in Southeast Asia and got within 1,000 feet of the summit of Mount McKinley in Alaska. So, you know, it's but I suppose the main thing, in a sense, why I'm here is because of our now association with T Hapan, probably in a totally different way than people would ever think that you'd become involved in something like this. Well, about 10 or 11 years ago, we'd fostered for about 5 years, 6 years, and we always said, because Pen and I, my wife, used to work with people with a learning disability, that we would like to give the chance for a child whose family couldn't look after him at the time to come and live with us. And that little bit of a dream, if you like, became a reality. But in a sense, Thomas really didn't turn out to be not quite what we were looking for, but it was something totally different. We'd had experience with disability, but we never had experience with, if you like, life-limiting illnesses, and to learn all the extra pressures that puts on just from disability is amazing. Because Thomas was fostered, you know, there's a very unusual thing. A lot of people think when you foster, you foster a child and you know because they are somebody else's child that it makes a difference, but you fall in love with them. And certainly when you have a child who is so, if you like, required of your help 24 hours a day, that makes it even easier for you to fall in love with them.
What was he actually diagnosed with? What was his condition, Dave?
Well, Thomas was diagnosed with cerebral palsy, and when he was 11 months old, unfortunately, like a lot of people have come know about nowadays, but I think was less known about in those days, was Thomas contracted meningitis. But because of his condition as it happened then, it's very difficult. If you have something else wrong with you, it's very difficult sometimes for the medical profession to see past what you first have. And unfortunately, Thomas's condition was not treated, and all the damage was done, which left Thomas with severe epilepsy of around 200 epileptic seizures a day. Ours was a life very much of 24-hour-a-day medical care and 24-hour-a-day of never knowing when you walked into a room whether Thomas would be critical or even whether he would still be alive. We decided that Thomas wasn't going to be with us to live, to die. He was going to come with us to live, and because we became to love him, we looked and we said, we've got to give him something to fight for. But we never realised actually, in fact, in those early days, how much fight he had and how much resolve and resilience he had. And a massive, massive important part of his life and our life was T. Havan. In T. Havan, we had the opportunity of working together with them to manage Thomas's condition. To not only manage it, but to actual fact give him a much better quality of life than we could perhaps have given him on our own. In a sense, we became part of, if you like, the T. Havan family. And for many years I fundraised, but of doing the things, you know, a little bit like at the moment, it's the 3 Peaks, yeah. If you like, being there, had the t-shirt, I'm almost pleased that it's somebody else that's doing it nowadays, because I know it's going to be really, really tough for you, is. But when it gets really, really tough, I think there's two things that you have to remember is one is that Thomas had massive amounts of mountains which he climbed regularly. I used to climb mountains, and whether we like it or not nowadays is organisations need funding. And well, unlike T. Havan, it costs a phenomenal amount to run. But if it wasn't for that, we'd have had nothing. And I don't think Thomas would have been with us as long if we hadn't have had T. Havan.